And I will take you through each of these concepts as we go through the presentation. So the first question I have to ask is, what is resilience? So to answer very briefly, it is the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress such as family and relationship problems, serious health problems, workplace problems, or financial stresses. And I'm sure that everyone here has experienced some of these stresses at some point in your life. So therefore, this is very pertinent to you. So resilience is what helps us to adapt well, to cope and bounce back quickly in these times. And I do believe that the actions that we need to take must be practical and we must be able to repeat them over time. So that's what I will be teaching you today. What does resiliency mean? It means to sustain good health and well-being in stressful conditions. That means not falling apart, becoming stronger and better year after year, to cope well with non-stop change. Let's face it, change is constant. If there's no change, then you are probably non-existent. So we have to learn to cope with the change, to overcome adversity, to convert misfortune into good luck, and to bounce back easily from setbacks. And in order to become resilient, one has to take personal responsibility. And what does this mean? This means that you have the ability to take accountability over your own life. And this is a key factor of resilience. You do this by enhancing your internal locus of control, which helps to increase resilience. What is the internal locus of control? It means that you are in control of your thoughts, your actions, and your attitude. And we'll talk a bit more about that later in the presentation. So, attitude and belief are very important because these are the things that help strengthen and build resiliency. When you believe that you hold the keys to your faith, you are more motivated to take action to change your situation when needed. Here's an interesting thought: resilience versus resistance. And they are two very different things. So when presented with a difficulty or a life-altering event, which is a change, you have several choices to make about how to deal with these occurrences. So one of the many choices we may choose is resistance. But if we resist the newly unfolding change, it can sometimes make a difficult circumstance even worse. And on the other hand, so this is resistance. On the other hand, we have resilience. So why resilience? Because we live in a world where change is the norm. Like I said earlier, change is inevitable. It's happening all the time around us. And it's not possible to be protected and isolated from fear, risks, downtime, death of friends and loved ones, illness, divorce, war, disasters. All these things are ever present. And it's impossible to avoid any one of these things all the time. So at some time or the other, we have to face one of these possibilities. By being resilient, we would have the tools that we need to respond to challenges and adversities. And just to also add, the pandemic that we've just experienced has left us with permanent scars, has left many people with permanent scars, with loss, with grieving of loved ones. A lot of people have had many adverse side effects. But in the face of that, in the face of challenge, we need to become resilient, and we need to download the tools to do that. Here's another interesting thing, is that resilient people are not afraid of challenges. So they succeed in spite of challenges and push themselves to their limits and in order to expand their horizons. So what are the benefits of resilience? Why do we need to be resilient? It's so that we can handle challenges much better. It improves communication. Now, this is an interesting concept, and I will further explain this a little while later, but an attitude or thoughts, our thought patterns can definitely affect how we communicate to each other or how we react to others. Resilience can reduce burnout and presenteeism. For those of you who don't know what presenteeism is, it means being physically present, but mentally absent. So your body is there, but your mind, your spirit, everything else is somewhere else. Usually where the problems are, that's where they are. Creating a competitive business, setting realistic expectations, better relationships amongst colleagues, and open to upskilling and developing. That's the constant change that we have to take note of. And good organization and time management, and the willingness to give and receive support. So the key elements of resilience are as follows. Emotional well-being, and this is the most important or the fundamental pillar of resilience. What does it mean? What is emotional well-being? It's how well you manage your emotions and thoughts, and how healthy and realistic your views are of yourself and the world. So that's what emotional well-being is. Secondly, your inner drive. Now, inner drive has to do with your motivation and adapting to a more forward-thinking approach to progress through life. Future focus, again, your level of foresight, as well as the ability to focus on solutions and positive change. It also encompasses accepting failure. And this is a big part of future focus. Because if you don't accept failure, you're going to get stuck in that moment that you failed, and you're never going to be able to move forward. Relationships, networking, and support. This is a big part of resilience building, to have the correct networks, to network with friends, family, colleagues. And this is how we get our emotional and sometimes physical support as well. And what is also interesting is that a lot of these people that we're going to network with may also be experiencing the same challenges or similar challenges that we are going through. So we can help each other. Physical health. There is a mind-body connection. We all have it. So physical health is a big part of building resilience. And it includes taking care of your body, what you eat, and of course, a very important part of physical health is sleep. And I'll speak more about this later in the presentation. So resilient people, they look for opportunities in problems. They have a positive attitude. They fight the victim mentality. That means they fight not to be stuck. They find their power in every situation. So they're always looking for solutions. They are able to overcome difficulties. And this is by no means easy, overcoming difficulties. It's quite a difficult thing in itself. And they learn from mistakes and move on. So these are what resilient people look like. I just would like for you to take a moment, just think about yourself just for 2 minutes. Think about yourself, look through these aspects of a resilient person and ask yourself if you need to change anything. Is there any area you need to develop, or is there something you can learn or you still have to learn? Take a moment to think about that. Okay, let's move on. Now, if you are not resilient, you develop something called compassion fatigue. And some of you may have heard of this term, but let me explain what it is. So compassion fatigue is a state of being. And it's a state of exhaustion and impairment, biologically, physiologically, and emotionally as a result of prolonged exposure to trauma. So what kind of trauma can this be? This can be working in a toxic work environment, being in a toxic relationship or marriage, maybe having to deal with a child that's very difficult, or have a child that has an impairment, a physical or a mental impairment. It's a very difficult thing to deal with. All those kind of things add trauma to our lives. And being exposed to this over a long period of time causes chronic stress and can lead to an ultimate state of compassion fatigue. And if we think about it, we all know people that are experiencing a lot of stress, chronic stress in their life. So it is a very natural part of being. It is predictable, and I would like for you to know that it is manageable and treatable, but small steps, little bites at a time. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You can't eat the whole thing at once. What does compassion fatigue feel like, or what does it look like? If you feel you have compassion fatigue, how would you know this? What are the symptoms, the signs and symptoms? Let's talk about internal thoughts. These would include intrusive thoughts. You would have a decreased attention span, thoughts of harm to self or others, reduced sense of safety, and paranoia or suspiciousness. Also, you could have irritability and memory loss. These are all the internal thoughts that would kind of point to compassion fatigue. Another thing would be physiological. These would include poor sleep, appetite changes, that means either overeating or undereating. I once had a client who told me that she hadn't eaten in a whole week. And I thought that was really, really strange. How does one survive without eating? And she said she didn't even think about eating, but she was under a lot of stress. So there are people that do experience a change in appetite, sorry. Hypervigilant, that means you're always on edge, always looking over your shoulder. And you can also be this way after an incident, after a mugging or a car accident, for example. It's a heightened state of a sensory, it's actually a sensory overload. You can become argumentative and self-medicating. These may all be indicators of a physiological reaction or a physiological state of compassion fatigue. The next one, decreased sense of hope and purpose. When you wake up in the morning, you don't have any purpose. You feel, what is even the point of waking up? You can even be angry at God. You can question your previous beliefs, or even a loss of compassion. If you just don't care about other people, don't care about, oh, well, it's his problem. He probably deserves what he got. I'm sure at some time or the other, we've all felt this way. It doesn't mean we have compassion fatigue. It just means that if we experience all of these symptoms, or most of them, 5 out of the 6, then we could have compassion fatigue. Physical symptoms, these would include a rapid heartbeat, breathing difficulties, aches and pains, dizziness, exhaustion. Perhaps some of you may know colleagues or friends that have anxiety attacks or panic attacks, and this is a very real thing. It's where you feel that your chest is closing up, your heart starts beating fast, and you can't breathe. So those are physical symptoms. Loss of control or power. This means feeling powerless, a great deal of anxiety and fear, anger, irritability, numbness, shame. And the last one, detachment from co-workers, from family and friends, and also a shortened tenure in current position. That means you don't stay long in a job. So these are what the symptoms would look like. And we don't want to be in this state. We want to move to a state of resilience. And there's a few ways to do this. So I'm going to discuss the different aspects of resilience, the different things that we need to look for in order for us to feel like we are resilient, we are in control, we have hope, we have purpose, and these would include self-awareness. So this is becoming aware of your thoughts. If you find yourself 90% of the time thinking about negative thoughts, then you need to be concerned. Purpose, if you find yourself questioning your purpose every day or more often than not, then you need to be concerned. If you absolutely cannot be present and mindful, again, that's a red flag. So the opposite of this will be mindfulness. And I will teach you a little bit about how to be mindful. Relationships, very important to have significant relationships in our lives, to have people that support us, to have people that know us and that can say, you know what, I think you are really adopting a very negative outlook on this. Let's look at it differently. So when people offer us constructive criticism, it is not always a negative thing. It can sometimes be quite helpful. And the last one is self-care. Self-care is how do we take care of ourselves, mind, body, spirit, all of those things. So I could actually give a workshop on each of these aspects. And they are all significant, they are interwoven, and they definitely affect each other. So let's move on. So what is emotional resilience? These are the different aspects of resilience. An emotionally resilient person would be self-aware. That means they would be aware of their own thoughts, their own behaviors, their own attitude. They will be more accepting. They will be able to bounce back from any difficult situation in a short space of time. They can cope with stress. They are optimistic, and they have positive relationships with people. So they may be people that always have negative outlooks, negative relationships. In every relationship, there's conflict, there's problems. And hello, is there a question?
No, maybe everybody just make sure you're on mute, please. Please continue, Jane.
Okay, I'll take questions at the end of the presentation. I'll allow for some questions. So then, if this is an emotionally resilient person, what would a person look like that is in emotional distress? And this is what they would look like. An inability to eat, sleep, or concentrate, a negative outlook or even depression, thoughts or attempts at self-harm, irritability, inability to control anger. That means you just lash out all the time. Impulsive behavior, which is also a sign of being emotionally immature. Feelings of helplessness or hopelessness, fearfulness, nervousness, or anxiety, feeling emotionally numb or detached, inexplicable sadness, flashbacks to a traumatic event, confusion or disorientation, extreme mood swings. Sometimes extreme mood swings can also be a result of a personality disorder or mood disorder, which we call bipolar disorder, but that's something else. That's not what I'm talking about today. Today I'm talking about emotional distress. So this is a result of stress that you experience. Loss of work ethic or social functionality. That means you don't meet deadlines, you don't respect authority, you're always in conflict with your superiors, that kind of thing. And of course, poor self-care. So you may not take care of your physical appearance, you may not take care of your sleep, you just remain awake all the time, or you sleep too much. That's also not a good thing. So here are some tips for improving emotional resilience. Firstly, self-care. I said that you need to get to know yourself. Self-awareness is a big part of emotional resilience. Get to know yourself. Get to know what makes you tick. Get to know what really makes you flip, what causes pain, what causes anxiety, what causes you happiness, not just the negative side, the positive side as well. And a good way to do this is to keep a journal. Practice optimism. Now, it's not so easy to just say to someone, you need to be optimistic. What does this mean to a pessimistic person? It means that every time you think a thought that's negative, you need to remind yourself, or even if you're writing things down, you need to say, this was the negative thought that I thought. Can I reframe that? Can I think about the flip side? That's the positive side. And 99% of the time, you will be able to think of the positive side of it. That's how you practice optimism. It's not just, to just say it to somebody doesn't mean anything. It has to have a practicality to it, and that's how you would do it. Learn to manage stress. How do you do this? You need to de-stress. And there are a few ways that I'll talk to you about de-stressing. And finally, if you feel that you are not coping well, seek advice from a trusted professional, and they can really help you through difficult times. So physical resilience, what does this mean? This means knowing your limits in terms of your physical body, what you can and cannot do, eating a balanced diet, balanced physical activity. What does that mean? That means not having too much or too little sleep, incorporating an exercise regime into your day. This is very important. I know some people, a lot of people say, I don't have the time to exercise. So the truth of the matter is nobody has the time to exercise. We only have 24 hours in a day, and how we manage those 24 hours really shows our ability to manage ourselves. And it's important to manage ourselves, because if we can't manage ourselves, how are we going to manage anybody else? How are we going to manage our co-workers? How are we going to manage our families, our children, our spouses? And some spouses need to be managed, believe me. And of course, um, or even if you're in a position of management, you need to have that ability to first manage yourself. So master that, how to manage yourself. Avoiding substance abuse. Substance abuse is definitely not a good thing. It's a huge negative impact on our brain, because in our brain, a lot of chemical processes takes place. Substances do impact that negatively, depending on the type of substances. When we talk about substances, I'm talking about alcohol, recreational drugs, and too much of medication, those kind of things. Also, another substance that a lot of people actually don't think is bad and don't know it as a substance is sugar. Sugar has a very, very negative impact on the brain, as well as on our body. And it is by no means a good thing. We do not need sugar in our lives, because a lot of the foods that we eat have its own sugars. Taking care of yourself and regular checkups. A person that is in physical distress would look like this: recurring pain in joints, muscles, or elsewhere in the body. So every morning you get up and you have some kind of pain, and you would also become okay, so you'd become negative. If you always have pain, you tend to become negative as well. High body mass index, that's your BMI, difficulty breathing, abuse of substances, unexplained exhaustion, insomnia. And for insomnia, I want to say the opposite as well: oversleeping. So you get people that all they ever do is sleeping. And whenever they're not at work, they're at home sleeping. That's a sign that something's not right. Poor eating habits. This plays a big factor in stress. Eating too much of takeaways will mean that your consumption of salt and sugars is very high, as well as preservatives. Takeaways, not eating enough fresh fruit and vegetable, a lot of processed food, all bad habits. And of course, poor safety habits. That means not being very vigilant, making a habit of going out at night to dangerous areas, getting drunk, those kind of things. So how can we combat this? What are the ways of addressing physical distress? So the ways would be the following. Maintain a diverse exercise schedule. Now, I know I'm going to get a lot of people that are going to say, but I don't have the time for exercising. Exercise is something that has to be built into your day. So what I do is, just as a tip, I have a diary. So I keep a physical diary as well as a electronic diary. On my physical diary, every day, I've got a little part on the side of my diary where I write exercise. So I plan it out in advance, and planning can be very beneficial. And the days I exercise, I put a tick. The days I can't exercise, I put a cross. So this helps me monitor when I exercise and how often. And exercising doesn't have to be hours on end. It can be 30 minutes 4 times a week, or 40 minutes 3 times a week. but it is essential. It's very important. Listen to your body. Number 2, listen to your body. If you are tired, you are tired. You need to sleep. Cook more, eat out less. I spoke about takeaways and how harmful they are. Little adjustments go a long way. So the little things, the little changes that you need to make. So I didn't come here with rocket science or things that you may never have heard of before. These are common things. These are everyday things. They are practical things, little things that you need to adjust and do on a daily basis. Practice sleep hygiene, and I spoke a lot about sleep. The optimal time for a human being to sleep is 8 hours, and that is every night. Why? Because our brain needs 8 hours to reset and for all the chemicals to get back into balance and for the cells to heal so the brain can send messages to different parts of the body to say you are rested. And 8 hours. So if you're sleeping more than that, maybe 9 hours could do, 7 hours. So 7 to 9 hours is optimal. What is mental resilience? This is having a positive outlook and perspective, believing in yourself, positive self-talk, the ability to reframe any negative thoughts, and to maintain focus on a task, whatever you're doing. If you're at work, you are serious about work. If you are at home, you're serious about your family. And if you're having fun, you're serious about having fun. You're not there because, oh, I had to go out because my partner said I have to go out with them. No, go out so that you have fun. So sustain focus. Setting realistic boundaries, setting realistic goals, and relaxing and letting go is a big part of it. We need to do that. We can't run like a hamster on a wheel all the time. We need to relax and let go sometimes. Ask for help, count on friends, breathing, visualizing, chunking, gratitude, and self-acceptance. If I do have time at the end of this presentation, I just need about 5 minutes and I can take you through a breathing exercise. You will be amazed at how it resets and helps relax you. So let's hope I have some time. Mental distress, what does this look like? A person that's not mentally resilient would be mentally distressed. They would have difficulty in letting go of mistakes. They would have a very negative outlook on life, not just on themselves, on life. Could have depression, could have frequent expressions of negativity. So I don't know if any of you have met any person that has a problem for every solution that you give them. I've met quite a few people like that. Sometimes I also wonder, am I getting like that? And then I quickly reframe and say, no, I have to look at the positive side of this. So we all are guilty of that from time to time, but it's important to self-talk, to say to ourselves, are we getting into a negative perspective? Because then I need to reframe and think about the positive outlook as well. Let's move on. So you also get paranoia. What does that mean? Being suspicious all the time, being suspicious of people telling you things. Then mental exhaustion, high levels of anxiety, powerlessness. And I spoke earlier on about having a sense of control and a sense of power, maintaining your power. You could have hopelessness, increased frustration, anger, confusion, disorganization, difficulty in concentrating, and forgetfulness, another indicator of mental distress. So I'd like to share with you some tips on becoming mentally resilient.
Janie,
Yes.
I just want to give you a heads up. We've got about between 5 and 7 minutes left.
Oh dear. Okay. So
let's make it. I just want to leave time for people to ask questions. So maybe let's do 10 minutes.
okay. Thank you for that, Elaine. Thank
Okay.
you. Tips for improving mental resilience, mental flexibility, incorporating multiple views, perseverance, that means building your strength, endurance, ability to adapt, confidence, ability to bounce back, mindfulness, self-awareness, purpose, self-care, decision-making, positive thinking, and problem solving. Spiritual resilience will be your purpose in life and your belief system. Do you still believe in it? Is it realistic? And are you in harmony with your surroundings? And if you don't have this, then you're going to be in spiritual distress, which means a loss of direction, a lack of purpose, self-destructive language. And these feelings of emptiness, feeling alone in the world, not believing in a higher power, hopelessness, helplessness, sometimes even isolation, and also it can be anger at God or higher power. Tips for improving spiritual resilience: find some quiet time, say something, preferably out loud. And here I'd like to say self-affirmation. Say to yourself, I am going to get through this difficult stage or this difficult hurdle. Those are things you can say to yourself. Ask the big questions, find out what you believe, be true to yourself, and sing your favorite songs. I love music, so music is something I listen to a lot. Behavioral resilience would be practicing healthy sleep hygiene, positive coping behaviors, actively involved in self-improvement activities like attending this workshop, maintaining physical health, fitness regime, meditation, mindfulness, responsible use of substances, participation in support groups, awareness of resiliency, and to possess the ability to engage in healthy coping behaviors. Behavioral distress would look like this: poor grooming, physical appearance, irritability, defensiveness, unusual behavior or sudden change in behavior, increased frustration, anger, gambling or overspending, poor work performance, reduced work productivity, sudden loss and increased weight, or loss or increased weight, increased alcohol use, difficulty maintaining normal activities, a lot of illness, physical problems, and increased smoking. Tips for improving behavioral resilience would be practice self-management techniques, practice good sleep hygiene, exercise, practice cognitive restructuring and reframing. I taught you about that. Accepting change, learning from mistakes, nurture a positive view of oneself, set goals and be proactive in pursuing your goals, and have an accountability or a buddy. So realistic optimism is, we want to be in the middle, to have realistic optimism, and as opposed to unrealistic optimism or unrealistic pessimism. This would mean that unrealistic pessimism is always believing that something is not going to work out, and that's unrealistic. Or unrealistic optimism will always believing in that everything is going to work out, and then it doesn't, and then you are thrown. So it's good to be somewhere in the middle. And realistic optimism would be people that, although they foresee obstacles, they can figure out a way to get across it. So the ABC adversity beliefs about consequences are the following. A would be events, that's the adversity that takes place. B would be our beliefs and thoughts. C would be the consequences, how we feel and behave. So we get cut off in traffic. We immediately become angry and scream at the other driver, right? And we all know we do this from time to time. I'm guilty. Here, adversity is getting cut off in traffic. B is our beliefs about our interpretation of what happened. So how dare he cut me off? Or she is driving too slow, or he can't drive. The consequence would be anger and screaming. So another example would be, imagine your boss gave you some negative feedback on a presentation you made to the board. This is adversity. If you're pessimistic, you might then think you're not good at your job. This is your belief. You then avoid giving presentations, which affects your career progression, and the consequence is that you won't progress in your career. So I want to skip that. How to handle emotions at work, keeping your composure. So we can't change the way others feel and act. I spoke about having an internal locus of control. We can only change the way we react to them. And in order to do this, we need to monitor our physical response, make sure that we are always breathing calmly, slowly, and consciously relax certain body areas. If you are becoming emotional, identify the threat to you, because you become emotional when you perceive a threat, and maintain direct eye contact. Disagree promptly and unemotionally. So in other words, keep emotion out of it. If you are dealing with an angry person, always remain calm and always state the facts. Don't become emotional. Don't react too quickly, and determine first if your instinctive response will be the most productive. The self-efficacy, it is a person's sense of being able to deal effectively with a particular task, and it is a value each of us place on our own characteristics, abilities, and behaviors. I just want to move on to this section here before we finish, because this is important. Caring for the caregivers. Who are the caregivers at work? You all are. Executives, managers, middle managers, employees at all levels. So you all are. You can have caregiver burnout. It's where there's repeated stress at work. It triggers a release of stress hormones, and this can lead to exhaustion, irritability, and a lot of the other symptoms that I already described. Caregiver stress, feeling overwhelmed, constantly worried, feeling tired often, getting too much of sleep. And all of these symptoms I've already explained as being emotional distress or physiological distress. That would also would go for the caregiver as well. So it's hard to convince caregivers to slow down, and they need to realize that their body has limits as well. Tapping the wellspring of time and energy. So being a caregiver makes demands on your body, mind, and spirit. You have to take care of yourself, like I've explained in previous slides. Learn to meditate on a periodic basis, and make sure you make time for important things in your life. Caring at work, engage your employer about caregiving demands, working conditions, flexibility, and make sure you have the correct tools. Some of them, most of them I've already explained to you. The last one is particularly important. Take time daily to nurture yourself, physically, mentally, and spiritually. 3 dimensions of caregivers would include physical well-being, mental well-being, and spirituality. I've already explained these to you. Just a note on this slide is that caregivers always tend to put themselves last. So they'll do everything else, and if there's time, then they'll take care of themselves. This doesn't work. You need to make time to take care of yourself. You need to put yourself back into the equation, and you need to take control, get back your power. Release resentment. That means if you're resentful of somebody, it's going to eat at you. Self-affirm, important. Just a note here, the resilient people are the ones who bounce back early and move on quickly. If you don't do this, you lack resilience. Just skills to build resilience would be remain calm, living in the moment, that's presenteeism, living in the moment, mindfulness, use your body as feedback, acceptance, nourish yourself, build positive social relationships, find your purpose in life, and practice your skills. How to bounce back.
Janie?
Yes.
Sorry, if there's one last slide, maybe your last slide, which you think is really important for us. I know there's still a lot to give, but maybe I just want to make sure if there's any questions that people have an opportunity to speak to you as well. So maybe one last slide.
This is the last slide.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, so how to bounce back, seek support, tune into your positive inner voice, take action, practice self-care, and have purpose. Thank you very much for your attention. And are there any questions?
Yes, thank you very, very much. I think this is one of those sessions where we should have had a lot more time or more sessions.
Absolutely.
And hopefully we can bring you back again. I hope so. This was absolutely so enriching. On the one hand, I felt like I'm recognizing myself all over the place.
We all feel that way.
I felt, oh no, I am in emotional distress. Okay, I'm also in physical distress. Okay, I'm in distress.
Yes.
So I recognize myself there. But equally, you are giving us hope, Jenny. You're giving us hope and tools that tell us, but it's something we can overcome. And I think I really would love, and that it starts with us, with ourselves. It's not looking out there, it's looking inside, right?
Yes.
So maybe I want to check in with the colleagues. Let's see, any questions, any comments. I would love to hear if there's one thing that stuck with you this afternoon. Many things, but the most important thing that you are taking away, something that really touched you deeply. Why don't you just put up your hand and we've got about 5-7 minutes left, and I think I want to actually be very, very bad, and I want to ask my dear Anita to come in and just to tell me if there's one thing today that really, really spoke to you deeply. What would it be? And then I would love for Benjamin and Ezra and others, also Boitumelo and the rest to come in. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Elaine. And thank you so much for the presentation. I think I felt the same way as Elaine. As you were going through, I identified certain things, but just from the type of person that I am, I think I might be going from a continuum from being stressed to resilient and back. So I feel like I might be, kind of going back and forth. But what I did take away is that there are tools to assist you to stay on the one side and stay resilient. And I think probably most people go through, maybe some people go through it worse than others, but there is tools to help you. And I think it's just about practicing the tools and getting good at that, and then staying on that side and kind of focusing on self other than what is happening around you, because I think at the end of the day, it has to do with yourself. Thanks.
Thank you. Is that Anita?
Yes, Anita.
Hi. Yes, thank you, Anita. I just want to add to that. Remember, one of the essential things is that we need to be kind to ourselves. So yes, there are going to be times when we're going to go through ups and downs, but it doesn't mean that, we need to say, oh, I'm not resilient or I'm in emotional distress. We need to be aware of it and say, you know what, it's okay. Talk to yourself and say, it's okay. It's okay. You're going to get through this. And that is how we will continue on this journey. I hope that helps.
Much. Yes, absolutely. Let me hear Esra, I'm pointing you. Can you, let me just see, have you left us in the meantime? I saw you a little bit earlier. Oh, I think you've just left. Right, let me just hear anybody else before Kanyisa. Kanye? You still on mute? Okay. Okay, no. So I think if is there anybody else who's got a comment? Otherwise, we're going to close the session. I think right. So then I'm going to close. And just want to say, Janie, thank you very, very, very much. There was so much to take away. I think we've had a wonderful session this afternoon. Thank you for giving us hope and tips, because as much as I recognize myself all over in distress, I also recognize the fact that I'm a resilient person.
That's good.
So thank you very much for this. And we're going to upload this. We're going to share the PowerPoint. People can have a look at it, revisit it at your own leisure. And just thank you very much, everybody, for being here. Janie, thank you very much. I hope we can get you back again, because I think we do need to follow up on this. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. And Janie, thank you once again.
Thank you, Elaine, and thank you, everybody that attended. I just want to add one more thing. I think this is a presentation that should be done in half a day. An hour is way too little, because what I usually do is take you through the exercise programs, the activities that we have to do. So it actually helps you, it digs deep into your thoughts, and it helps you a lot. Then we also end with the breathing, and that is really a half day. It cannot be done in an hour. So
tell me, Janie,
yes.
I agree with you. The breathing, how long does that take?
Well, ideally, it takes about 10 minutes, but you can do the half version, which is 5 minutes.
So I want to ask you, as we have
Yes.
come at the end of a long week and it's a long year, why don't you do the breathing with us, the half breathing, and then people stay another 5 minutes and we get your wonderful breathing exercise, and I think we all start the weekend on a high note. Would you do that with us?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so let's do the breathing.
Okay, in order for us to do the breathing, what we need to do is sit in a relaxed position. All right, make sure, if possible, participants, may I please ask you to remove your shoes so your feet can be on the ground, feel the ground. We are practicing a little bit of mindfulness and breathing at the same time. I'm going to be taking you through the breathing, and then I'm going to keep quiet for a few minutes, and you're going to continue the breathing on your own. So what we're going to do is close our eyes, sit in our chairs, feet on the ground, hands in a very relaxed position on our laps or on our sides. Close your eyes. And then we're going to start the breathing, and it's going to be very deep breaths that we take into our lungs to fill up our lungs, so that our diaphragm will move downwards to the count of 6. So it's a slow breath. It's not a quick breath. It's a slow breath. And then we're going to hold the breath for a few seconds and slowly release it to the count of 6. And as we're releasing the breath, we're going to self-affirm. So we're going to say in our minds, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be calm. So let's do that now. Eyes closed. Deep breath into the count of 6. Hold the breath. Slowly let the breath out to the count of 6. and self-affirm. And we're going to continue with the breathing, eyes closed. Continue with the breathing for 3 minutes on your own. I'm going to remind you not to think about anything, just focus on the breathing. We've got 2 more minutes. You are all very calm now. You may stop the breathing, open up your eyes. You should be feeling really relaxed right now. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very, very much for this. It's been wonderful. Everybody, have a wonderful weekend. I do feel nice and relaxed. I'm ready for the weekend now. Bless you, Janie.
It's a
Bless
pleasure.
everybody.
Goodbye,
Everybody. Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.